"Sorry, this table is for family only," my sister laughed, her voice like chimes in a graveyard. She pointed a perfectly manicured finger, the diamond on her ring catching the light from the ridiculously expensive chandelier I'd paid for, toward a sad, wobbly little table in the darkest corner of the ballroom. I followed her gesture. The table was practically in the kitchen, right next to the thumping bass of the DJ's speaker. It was a pathetic island of misfit toys, set for three. My name was on a card there, nestled between a great-aunt I was pretty sure had passed away 3 years ago and someone cryptically labeled a photographer's assistant my sister, Chloe, the radiant bride in a dress whose alterations I'd funded, turned back to her groom, Liam, and they shared a little smirk. It wasn't a joke. It was a statement. I had always known I wasn't the favorite, that was a fact as certain as gravity in our household. I was the older brother, the responsible one, the boring one. I was the one who went to college for something practical, got a stable job in software engineering, and started making real money. Chloe, on the other hand, was the artist, the free spirit. The golden child who could do no wrong, even when all she did was wrong. For the last decade, my primary role in the family had been chief financial officer and head of damage control. I was the walking, talking ATM they turned to whenever reality threatened to puncture their bubble of delusion. When Chloe decided she needed to find herself in Bali for 6 months, who paid for the plane tickets and the villa? Me. When she maxed out 3 credit cards on her essential art supplies that looked suspiciously like designer handbags, who bailed her out so it wouldn't affect her credit score? Good old Mark, the family checkbook. My parents, of course, encouraged this. "She's sensitive, Mark," my mother would say, her voice oozing with manipulative sympathy. "The world is too harsh for a soul like hers. It's our job, as her family, to protect her, our job." That was a funny way of putting it. It was always my money and their platitudes. They never contributed a dime. They were too busy enabling her, telling her how brilliant her blurry photographs were and how she was destined for greatness, all while I was working 60-hour weeks to keep the whole charade afloat. The wedding was the magnum opus of their collective entitlement. Chloe had her vision, you see. It wasn't just a wedding, it was an immersive experience. This vision, naturally, came with a price tag that could fund a small nation. My parents sat me down for the talk about 6 months before the big day. They had spreadsheets, which was a terrifying first. "Mark, honey," my dad started, putting on his most earnest, folksy dad voice, the one he used when he was about to ask for something huge. "We know how much you love your sister." I didn't, not really, but I nodded. "And her wedding day, it's the most important day of her life. We can't make her vision a reality on our own." My mother picked up the baton. "She has her heart set on the Grand Elysian Ballroom. And the caterers from that Michelin star restaurant. It's all she talks about. You wouldn't want her to be disappointed, would you? It would just crush her." They painted this picture of a fragile little bird whose heart would shatter if she had to settle for a wedding that cost less than a suburban home. I was tired. I was worn down from years of this. A part of me, a stupid, hopeful part, thought that maybe this would be the last time. The grand finale. If I did this, if I gave her the wedding of her dreams, maybe they would finally see me, finally appreciate me. Maybe this colossal act of generosity would buy me a permanent seat at the table, figuratively and, as I would soon find out, literally. So I agreed. I took a significant chunk out of my investment portfolio, the money I was saving for a down payment on my own house. I put down the initial $50,000 deposit for the venue and the caterers. The final payment, a much, much larger sum, was contractual, due to be transferred the morning after the wedding. I was the point of contact for the wedding planner, a briskly efficient woman named Sarah. My name was on the contract as the financial guarantor. I was, for all intents and purposes, the host of this party. A fact they seemed to conveniently forget. I walked into the reception hall, the sheer opulence of it hitting me like a physical blow. Towering floral arrangements, an ice sculpture of 2 swans, a string quartet playing in the corner, it was all there, every last detail from Chloe's Pinterest board brought to life by my bank account. I felt a grim, hollow sense of accomplishment. I had done it. I had given her the dream. I made my way towards the head table, a long, beautifully decorated affair at the front of the room. I was looking for my name card, expecting to be seated next to my parents. It was the least they could do, right? I saw the elegant calligraphy: Mom, Dad, Liam, Chloe. Liam's parents. Even my Aunt Carol, who they complained about constantly, had a spot. But my name wasn't there. I scanned the table again. Nothing. A cold knot began to form in my stomach. This had to be a mistake. A simple oversight in the chaos of planning. I spotted Chloe flitting between guests, basking in the adoration. I caught her eye and gestured toward the table. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "I think my place card is missing." She glanced at the table, then back at me, and that's when she smiled that bright, cruel smile. "Oh, no, it's not missing," she chirped. And then came the line, the one that would echo in my head for years. "Sorry, this table is for family only." She laughed, a light, tinkling sound that didn't reach her eyes. Her new husband, Liam, stood beside her, a smug grin plastered on his face as he draped an arm around her. She then raised her hand and pointed across the vast, crowded room. "You're over there." I looked. My eyes traced the path her finger designated, past tables of happy, laughing guests, all the way to the back. To the corner. To the tiny, forgotten table by the swinging kitchen doors. The one with the dead great-aunt and the nameless assistant. The humiliation was instantaneous and total. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message, delivered publicly and with a smile. I wasn't one of them. I was the help. The sponsor. And now that my services had been rendered, I was to be shunted aside, out of sight and out of mind. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. The sounds of the party, the music, the laughter, the clinking glasses, all faded into a dull roar in my ears. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and my own burning indignation. Every favor, every check I'd written, every late-night phone call I'd answered, all of it flashed through my mind. And it all culminated in this single, perfect moment of dismissal. The shock didn't last long. It quickly crystallized into something hard and sharp, a feeling so cold and clear it was almost peaceful. The years of resentment finally had a focal point. I didn't shout. I didn't cause a scene. My rage was a quiet, precise instrument. I took a slow breath, turned, and walked back to the head table. My parents were now seated, beaming proudly. Chloe and Liam were just taking their seats. I walked right up behind Chloe's chair and leaned down, my voice low and steady, meant only for them. "Chloe, I need you to clarify something for me." She looked up, annoyed at the interruption. "What, Mark? Can't you see I'm busy?" "I'm not family," I stated, not as a question, but as a fact I was confirming. Her eyes flickered with irritation. "Oh my God, don't be so dramatic. It's just a seating chart." "Someone had to sit at the back table," Liam chimed in with a condescending chuckle. "Yeah, man, relax. It's a party." I ignored him and kept my eyes locked on my sister. "So, the person who paid for this ballroom," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "the person who paid for the food that's about to be served on these plates, the person who paid for those flowers you're so proud of, that person isn't considered family enough to sit at this table. I just want to make sure I understand the dynamic correctly." The smiles on their faces started to falter. My mother leaned across the table. "Mark, please," she hissed, her voice tight with panic. "You are making a scene." "Not now." "I'm not making a scene, Mom," I replied, my gaze shifting to her. "I'm asking for a definition. It seems the definition of family has changed, and nobody gave me the memo. I just need to know the new rules." My father started to bluster, "Now you listen here," but I cut him off, not by raising my voice, but by pulling out my phone. The weapon of the modern age. My thumb moved with practiced efficiency, scrolling through years of digital begging. The air at the table grew thick and still. The string quartet might as well have been playing a funeral dirge. Let's review, I said, my tone becoming that of a lawyer presenting evidence to a jury. I stopped at a text chain with my mother. I angled the screen so she could see her own words, her own profile picture smiling back at her. Mom, I began, reading the message aloud in a deadpan monotone that stripped it of all its cloying sentiment. On May 12th of this year, at 8:15 p.m., you texted me, and I quote, Mark, honey, we're family. And family means we have to support Chloe's dream wedding. We literally can't do this without you. Please, did you, or did you not, send that message? My mother's face went white. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air. I didn't wait for an answer. I swiped over to my Venmo history. And Chloe, I said, turning my attention back to the bride. Her smugness had completely evaporated, replaced by a deer-in-the-headlights terror. On June 3rd, you sent me a request for $2,000. The note attached read, I cleared my throat theatrically, for my emergency dress alterations. You're the best. Family helps family. Love you, bro, with 3 heart emojis. I looked up from my phone and met her eyes. So, I'm a little confused. Am I family only when the bills are due? Is that the arrangement? I provide the funding, and in return, I get to sit with the staff? Help me understand the terms of our agreement, because I seem to have misinterpreted them. The silence at the table was deafening. Even Aunt Carol was staring, her fork hovering halfway to her mouth. Liam was no longer smirking. My parents looked horrified, not at their actions, but at the fact that I was airing their dirty, expensive laundry in public. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. I looked at the 5 of them, their faces a gallery of shock and dawning horror. For the first time in my entire life, I had all the power. And they knew it. You know what? I said, a slow, genuine smile spreading across my face. You're absolutely right. It's important to have boundaries. To know who is family and who isn't. I straightened up, patted my jacket, and gave them a little nod. Thank you for clarifying my position here. It means a lot. With that, I turned my back on them. I didn't walk towards the pathetic table in the corner. I didn't walk towards the exit. I walked with purpose towards the entrance of the ballroom, where I knew Sarah, the wedding planner, was stationed with her clipboard and earpiece, directing the flow of the event like a seasoned general. I saw her spot me, a polite, professional smile already forming on her lips. The head table was watching my every move. I could feel their eyes burning into my back. This was the real performance. I reached Sarah and gave her a warm, apologetic smile. Sarah, you've done a wonderful job. Everything looks incredible, I began. She beamed. Thank you, Mark. We're so happy with how it turned out. Yes, well, I said, letting my smile fade just a little. There has been a slight, last-minute change in the financial arrangements. Her professional demeanor tightened. Oh. Yes, I said, keeping my voice calm and confidential, though just loud enough that anyone paying close attention might overhear. As of this moment, I am withdrawing my financial sponsorship of this event. The final payment for the venue, the catering, the staff, everything, the transfer for which was scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow, has been cancelled. Her eyes widened in alarm. Mark, the contract is with the family, I said smoothly. And it has been made abundantly clear to me, by the bride herself, that I am not family. Therefore, I am no longer a party to that agreement. You'll need to settle the outstanding balance. I believe it's just north of $100,000, with the bride's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. I pulled a business card from my wallet. This is my attorney's contact information. I'm sure he'll be happy to discuss the finer points of the contract with you. As it states, final payment is due within 24 hours of the event's conclusion. I wish you the best of luck in collecting it. I placed the card in her hand, gave her a final, polite nod, and walked away. I didn't look back. I strode straight out of the ballroom, past the ice sculpture, past the string quartet, and out into the cool night air, a free man. The walk to my car was the best walk of my life. Each step felt lighter than the last. The weight of a decade of obligation and resentment was just gone. I got into my car, the engine humming to life, and before I even pulled out of the parking lot, I did something I should have done years ago. I opened my contacts list and blocked Mom, Dad, and Chloe. Blocked their numbers, their messaging apps, everything. I wanted total, blissful silence. For about 15 glorious minutes, I had it. I was driving down the highway, the windows down, feeling the wind on my face, when my phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was an email. My father, bless his technologically inept heart, had figured out how to bypass the block. The subject line was just my name, in all caps. Mark. The body of the email was even more succinct. Call me immediately. What have you done? I laughed out loud. A real, deep, genuine laugh. Another buzz. This time, from my mother. Her email was slightly more verbose. Subject, you've ruined everything. The email read, Mark, I cannot believe you. You have ruined your sister's wedding day. Her one perfect day. How could you be so selfish? So cruel? After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us? You have embarrassed this entire family. Chloe is hysterical. You need to fix this right now after everything they'd done for me. I almost had to pull over. Everything they'd done for me was take. They took my money, my time, my emotional energy. They'd raised me, yes, but they'd been billing me for it ever since. I pictured the scene back at the reception. Sarah, the planner, a consummate professional, would have discreetly but firmly approached my father to discuss the now urgent matter of the six-figure bill. The panic. The whispered, frantic arguments at the head table while guests tried to pretend they didn't notice. The swan ice sculpture was probably melting, weeping for their sudden financial ruin. It was beautiful. The emails from my parents kept coming, each one more frantic than the last. I ignored them, letting them pile up in my inbox like unread love letters from lunatics. But then a new player entered the game. My Aunt Carol, the one who'd managed to snag a seat at the family-only table. Her text came through because I hadn't thought to block her. Mark, this has gone far enough. Your mother is in tears. Chloe is completely inconsolable and locked herself in the bridal suite. Liam is threatening to call the police. You need to call your father and fix this. Family doesn't do this to family. That was the line. That was the one I couldn't resist. Family doesn't do this to family. The hypocrisy was so pure, so potent, it was almost poetic. I pulled over into a gas station parking lot, the fluorescent lights bathing my car in a sterile glow. My fingers flew across the screen. I typed out my reply, savoring each word. Aunt Carol, I wrote. You must have me confused with someone else. As Chloe and the seating chart so clearly explained in front of 200 guests, I am not family. I was merely the financial sponsor for tonight's event. And as my sponsorship has now concluded, any outstanding financial obligations are the responsibility of the real family. I wish you all the best in settling the bill. Please pass along my congratulations to the happy couple. I hit send. The feeling was electric. A jolt of pure, unadulterated vindication surged through me. I imagined Aunt Carol reading the text, her face falling as she realized there was no easy way out of this. The story was now cemented. I wasn't the villain who ruined a wedding, I was the benefactor who was publicly disowned and simply acted accordingly. The narrative was mine now. I started my car again and drove home, my phone finally, blessedly silent. The war wasn't over, but I had just won the decisive battle, and I'd done it without raising my voice. I had simply held a mirror up to their faces and let them choke on their own reflection. A few days of glorious peace passed. I worked from home, ordered takeout, and reveled in the silence. No pleading texts, no manipulative phone calls. It was a strange and wonderful new world. But I knew it wouldn't last. On Wednesday evening, the buzzer to my apartment screamed. I checked the security camera. It was them. My parents, standing on my doorstep, looking haggard and defeated. My mother was clutching a tissue. My father just looked angry. I pressed the talk button on the intercom. "Hello?" I said, my voice flat. "Mark. Open the door. We need to talk to you." My mother's voice crackled through the speaker, thick with fake tears. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied calmly. "Please let us in," my father growled. "We are your parents." "My parents taught me that family is a very exclusive club with a strict door policy," I said. "I'm just respecting the rules that were established at the wedding." There was a frustrated sigh from my father. Then my mother started again, her voice shifting from demanding to pathetic. "Mark, please. The venue is going to sue us. They want the full amount by Friday, or they're taking legal action. We'll lose the house, Mark. We'll have to sell the house." The guilt trip. The classic, final gambit. A younger version of me would have caved instantly. The thought of my parents being homeless because of me would have been unbearable. But I wasn't that person anymore. They had killed that person and left his body at a table by the kitchen doors. "That sounds like a serious problem," I said into the intercom, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "It sounds like a problem for the family to solve together. You, Dad, Chloe, and Liam. You're the family. You should put your heads together and figure it out. I'm sure Chloe has some expensive art she can sell." I could hear my father muttering curses. My mother let out a theatrical sob. "How can you be so heartless?" "I learned from the best," I said, and then I cut the connection. They stood there for another 10 minutes, occasionally buzzing again, but I just ignored them. Eventually, they left. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The fallout was, in a word, spectacular. I didn't have to snoop. The information trickled down to me through a cousin who had always secretly been on my side. My parents, in a desperate panic, had taken out a high-interest second mortgage on their house to pay the venue. It completely wiped out what little equity they had. The honeymoon to the Maldives, which I had also, of course, paid for as a wedding gift, was non-refundable, but Chloe and Liam had to cancel because they couldn't afford the spending money. Apparently, the resort wasn't all-inclusive. Chloe, my delicate artist sister who was too sensitive for the harsh realities of the world, had to get a job. A real one. I heard she was working retail at the mall, stocking shelves and dealing with irate customers. The irony was so delicious I could taste it. Liam, the smirking groom, was apparently not as thrilled with his new, debt-ridden family life. They had to move into my parents' basement because they couldn't afford their own apartment anymore. My cousin told me the atmosphere in that house was so tense you could cut it with a knife. I felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, not even a shred of pity. All I felt was a profound sense of rightness, of cosmic balance being restored. For years, I had been a supporting character in their drama, the faceless benefactor whose only role was to fund their fantasies. I had paid for their comfort, their happiness, their status, and in return, they had shown me the ultimate disrespect. They didn't want me, they wanted my wallet. They wanted the perks of having a successful son and brother, but they didn't want the actual person attached to the bank account. They called me a monster. A selfish, vindictive monster who destroyed his own sister's perfect day over a seating chart. But it was never about the chair. It was about what the empty chair represented, a lifetime of being treated as a utility, not as a human being. They built their entire family dynamic on my compliance. The moment I refused to play my assigned role, their whole world came crashing down. So I have to ask you, as someone on the outside looking in, was I wrong to finally hand them the bill for their own lives?